You're watching Drake Wing Gaming. Enjoy the video.
Hey guys and gals, Nary here from Drake Wing Gaming. It's me on Twitter, the Gaming Drag. Today I'm coming back at you with another Let's Play episode of Arches. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right back in, shall we? Alarm chain, you were up and let's go! But that's when odd, slightly curved, glowing red lines begin expanding and shrinking behind his eyelids, and Cameron whines at the terrible reminder of what's going to happen. He's going to trip, and it's going to be terrible. Cameron pulls his paw away from his eyes and finds that what he sees isn't much better. The huge bear is crouched in front of him, his fur now a writhing, pulsating mass of a thing that almost seems like another living creature covering the bear. Listen, what you do next is going to determine what's going to happen to you. This is a dream. It has to be a dream. Everything that's happened, not just in this trailer, but in this whole town. It has to be a dream, a hallucination, a trick. This can't be happening. I need you to talk to some folks I used to know. If you're really one of those psychics, if you can fix my problems, I'll let you go like nothing happened. Cameron? Dev comes to again, and he blurts out the name without thinking. He's not sure how long it's been since the last time he woke up. Feels like hours, possibly even days since he was last conscious. He'd been dreaming. Something about insects crawling and biting his arms. And tornadoes. A twisting force. He realizes then that his arms are what brought him back to the waking world. They'd fallen asleep, and now the tingling is so bad that it feels like they're covered in crawling, writhing ants made of molten lead. The bear grunts in discomfort and tries to bring them down from above his head, but isn't able to. They come up short, and he hears a rattling sound close to his ears, which twitch at the loudness. Chains? Devon freezes, keeping his eyes closed, unsure if whoever did this to him is close by. Although it's hard to think through all the haziness, the memories come back to him rather quickly. First, he remembers walking deeper into the woods before the strange bear went to his trailer to get something. He came out with a bottle of water, claiming it was for Cameron. Then, after walking further into the dense forest, they came upon a white van. The exact kind of van that would make most people suspicious. Devon did become more suspicious, but by that time it was already too late. The old bear had pulled a gun on them, one that wasn't his shotgun, and told them both to get in the van. Artie started to run, and the other bear didn't hesitate to shoot him, aiming for his head. Devon isn't sure, but he could swear that he saw a spray of something, whether it be fur, blood, or worse, fan out from the back of Artie's head before he dropped. Devon's fingers and toes clench inward as he thinks about that moment. The sound, the suddenness, but mostly he remembers the way Artie fell. It was instant. Like strings that held him up had been cut, crumpling so quickly, Devon is sure that he'd been killed. At that point, Devon did everything the old bear had told him to, including lying Cameron on the rough desert floor. Devon tries to keep from whining as he wonders if that might be the last time he saw Cameron. And then he laid down in the van, letting him bind his arms up. Take it down. He thought about fighting back in that moment, but it was so quick that before he knew it, he was secured and he was made to drink from the bottle. Now he's lying in the very center of the tornado. A twisting force. Devon clenches his eyes shut even tighter, feeling moisture gather at the corners. Around the point is equal to force times distance, but he opens them a moment later, realizing that his captor would have seen all the movements he'd made. Perpendicular to force, he's alone in the van. His eyes sting, and the bear realizes that he's sweating heavily. This metallic box he's stuck in is hot, almost overwhelmingly stifling. He worries for a moment that he slept through the night, and now it's sunrise and he's about to cook to death in this van. But after gauging the light, he decides it's still around sunset, just a few hours after what had happened, after Artie had been killed. Shit. Devon squeezes his eyes shut again, feeling tears leak out into the moisture on his cheeks, moist fur on his cheeks. He allows himself this moment, but quickly focuses again, knowing Cameron is still out there with that bear. That's enough to get a rise from Devon, one that builds into a wave in his chest, a combination of adrenaline and terror, but mostly fury. While the brutality of this backwoods bear evokes fear in Devon, it also makes him angry that anyone would feel they have the right to do what the old bear did. He opens his eyes again and takes in his surroundings. He's lying flat on his back, arms stretched above his head. He can feel that it's a pair of handcuffs that are holding him in place. There's enough give that slowly he's able to turn over on his stomach. The action is incredibly painful, and Devon can't help but grunt loudly. His arms feel like they might fall off as they spasm. Slowly, painfully, He pulls himself up into a kneeling position, getting a better look at his predicament. He realizes then that these handcuffs are more like shackles meant to hold bear-sized creatures like himself in place. They're bolted into the floor of the van. Devin glances up suddenly, his ears catching what sounds like a faint cry outside the van. "Cameron?" Devin's voice comes out hoarse and cracked once more. "Is that Cameron?" It sounded like him. Devin is still groggy from whatever was in that bottle of water, but he's sure that he'd heard the distinct sound of his boyfriend's voice. The fact that it's now so suddenly absent convinces Devin that was definitely Cameron. He strains to listen for several more seconds, but he can't hear anything. He looks down at the heavy chain linking the metal cuffs around his wrists. Unbreakable. Still, he finds himself foolishly yanking at the shackles, hoping there's to be some kind of give in the slightly rusted chain and bolts. Shit! Tears fill Devin's eyes, the feeling of falling forever returning. He'd felt this way only a few times before, the first time being while he was running home, after he'd found Lupita's body. The last time being when he saw Arturo getting shot. And now, knowing that his boyfriend could be at the mercy of this bear whose intentions Devin can't even begin to guess, he just knows that they're horrific. But seeing the faces of those people, it changes something in Devin. A cool, icy calm descends on him, and he looks at the change carefully. His classes in physics had taught him all about the way in which forces exerted can seemingly accomplish things that seem impossible. So, even while his heart hammers in his ears, and even while his brain is clouded with a dense fog of sedation, Devin analyzes the chain and the bolts holding it in place. Torque. Cameron stays curled up on the floor for what feels like a long time. He had ultimately decided that he'd rather watch the harmless pulsating arches dance behind his eyelids rather than the nightmare the trailer is becoming. Every minute or so, the reality of the situation hits the coyote, and a burst of whimpering gas escapes his muzzle for a few minutes before fading back to only whimpering. He would stay down there until his trip was over, but Brian ended up pulling him back to where he was sitting. At this point, the coyote doesn't fight the bear, going limp while his body is pulled along. For a minute, Brian tries to get him to sit in the chair, but eventually just gives up, dropping Cameron next to the table where he just lies on the floor. The coyote listens to the old bear moving around the trailer, though it's barely audible over his own gasping sobs. Eventually, those lumbering, shuffling footsteps come closer, and Cameron knows that the old bear is crouching next to him. The coyote still doesn't open his eyes. "Listen, kid, since you ain't gonna calm down, you're taking some Xans, got it?" Cameron listens but doesn't move, afraid to do anything. Then he flinches as a rough, calloused paw grabs up his chin, forcing his mouth open slightly. Finally, Cameron opens his eyes a bit, and almost gasps at the vivid red lighting, which keeps him distracted until something falls into his mouth. A pill, and Cameron recognizes its distinct bar shape and bitter taste. Brian holds out a cup, a plastic one that Cameron looks at with undisguised fear. "It's just water." The old bear gestures at the counter where a gallon jug sits. When Cameron still doesn't move, Brian sighs. Then he gets up, grabs a cup straight out of the sink and pours it half full before drinking it. Cameron's mouth is as dry as the desert surrounding them, likely due to the combination of drugs and fear, and he really does want to swallow the pill to get rid of the taste. So he takes the cup and drinks, swallowing the Xanax, and despite his fear, he drinks until the cup is empty. He vaguely remembers his high school friends telling him to drink water to make his trip less intense. Cameron has the feeling that it probably won't change anything. Brian takes the cup from the coyote's limp paw, and it takes Cameron a second to realize that the bear is holding out another pill that looks like a small red square. "Now, put this one under your tongue." Cameron stares, trying to figure out if it's just the trip making it look that color, or... Brian sighs again, becoming more impatient. I broke a third off the bar I gave you." But now, Cameron is sure the pill is actually red. He draws back. A counterfeit pill. And that probably means it's cut with something. Something like opioids. I don't... Brian slaps him, the strike coming so fast that Coyote isn't even sure what happened. The sudden numbing sting on the left side of his face, along with the bright flash of light, is very, very familiar, though, and Cameron feels as though he's traveled 7 years back in time. His delayed reaction is a surprised gasp as he raises his arms over his face. The bear yanks his arms back down and thrusts the pill at his muzzle. This time, the coyote opens his mouth willingly, maneuvering the pill to sit under his tongue. His movements feel almost robotic at this point. To Cameron's immense relief, this seems to satisfy the bear, and Brian gets up from his crouching position, backing away. The coyote sits there for a moment, and slowly drags himself under the table, huddling in a corner as tears well up in his eyes again. After going through all that, and knowing that there's plenty more to go through, Cameron longs for Devon more than he ever has before. He waits until the pill dissolves before asking the question that he dreads hearing the answer to. Is Devon, the bear, is he still alive? If this giant, violent bear had encountered Devon and Artie, there's no telling what he might have done to them. His heart drops as the bear seems to hesitate. Please, tell me the truth. Cameron needs to know. Bear's fine. He's locked up, but fine. His tone sounds genuine, and even though Cameron will never trust him, he has to hold on to some hope. And if I do this for you, you'll let him go too? That's the plan. Your boyfriend? Cameron isn't sure how to best respond to that, so he doesn't. Brian shrugs. Doesn't matter much to me. Just do what I tell you, and you'll both be out of here by tomorrow. It's quiet for a moment, and Brian moves to the other end of the trailer, opening the fridge and doing whatever it is he does. Cameron doesn't bother keeping track. Let me know when you start seeing shit. Got something to do real quick. Cameron blurts out the other question, weighing heavy on his mind. And Arturo, the cat, is he... Brian doesn't look back and just sighs again. Cameron doesn't ask any follow-up questions, feeling like he got his answer. The thought that Artie might be gone is too messed up for his drugged-up mind, especially because he feels certain that he can't be gone. Cameron can't explain why, but he just feels it. He feels Dev and he feels Artie. Brian stands next to the door holding a plastic water bottle. Gonna go out for about 5 minutes. I'll be right next to the trailer, so if you try anything, I'll shoot your boyfriend in front of you, then I'll kill you. Eventually. Cameron doesn't move. But soon the trip intensifies and he hugs himself, the movement making his ribs ache from the earlier kicks. He just watches the vivid colors and shapes of his hallucinations. Meanwhile, the acrid taste of Xanax lingers on his tongue. Alright, y'all. I'm going to pause it right there. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. I love you all, and I shall see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye!